Okay, in this last chapter, what we're going to be talking about is we're going to be talking about China mostly. China and the growth of communism and the end of at least communism as an economic pattern in China. So what we're going to do is we're going to drop back and talk about how Mao Zedong, comes to power in China as the communist leader after World War II. Now, you'll remember back that World War One brings the Soviet Russians, Lenin, into power. And the Communist Party, if you guys remember us talking about it earlier, actually begins in China in about 1921. What we said was, though, that you can't have a Marxist sort of government like Karl Marx envisioned it because you haven't had industrialization yet. So what you got to have is you got to have it led by peasants. So let's drop back, though. If we're going to understand how Mao comes to power, we got to drop back and grab in World War II. What's going on in World War II? All right. First of all, in what ways did the communist Chinese take advantage of the Japanese invasion? In other words, in what way did World War II help the communists come to power? Well, first off, number one here is about Japan. Japan took coastal areas. They took the areas where the banks and the businesses that had the backing of the nationalists were. Next, the nationalist forces were destroyed by the superior Japanese. It made the nationalists look really bad to the people. The nationalists were forced to retreat and ask for help from the landlords and from the United States. Once an enemy of China, once the United States had been one of those countries that tried to carve China up. So it looks really bad for the nationalists. Number three, communist guerrilla warfare was more successful. Instead of trying to fight the Japanese openly on the battlefield, they tried to fight them through guerrilla warfare. Now, you guys know what guerrilla warfare means, right? That's right. It means a hit-and-run kind of tactic where you harass supply lines, you attack their soldiers at night. You don't engage them directly because they've got superior weapons and superior numbers, and they will crush you. They pushed the nationalists during this time period. The communists and the Japanese had pushed the nationalists back to the northern cities. Also, Mao takes advantage of propaganda campaigns during this time to expand his power and his popularity. Remember, to whom does Mao appeal? That's right, the peasants. That's right, the peasants. Mao appeals to the peasants. That's who he goes for to gain success and power. Eventually, Mao wins. There is a civil war after the World War II, and Mao will rise to power. He gets help from the Soviets. The Soviets have helped him. Stalin sees this as a chance to spread communism and perhaps pick up an ally along the border. But this short relationship with the Russians doesn't last. China and Russia soon start to hate each other. And the question here on these next two slides is why? Why would they hate each other? First of all, China wants back some of the borderlands that Russia had seized from the Qing dynasty. If you remember, the Qing dynasty had replaced the Ming dynasty. Let's just refresh our memories. The Qing dynasty were the Manchurians who had come in and replaced the Ming. The Russians and everybody takes advantage of the Qing when they're weak in the 1800s, and they had grabbed some land from the Qing, so they want this land back. Chinese refused to be subordinate to the Russians. The Russians felt they were the top communists in the world and therefore should be able to tell everybody else what to do. They don't like this. Number three, Stalin is now dead by the mid-50s, and Mao now sees himself as the new leader of the communist world. And he has something, number four, to back him up because China's beginning to look more and more powerful as they defeat India and develop a nuclear bomb for themselves. They have a border dispute with India and win. Now this picture here on the right is from Life magazine. It's from Mao in the 40s when he's on his way up as communist leader of China. What was the new method of industrialization introduced by Mao? Well, first of all, Mao doesn't like everything that Lenin and Stalin had done. He hates their version of revolution by a small number of elites. If you remember, let's go back in our memories here a second. Marx had believed that the revolution would come from the workers. Lenin said, we can't always wait on the workers. Maybe we need the elites and the intellectuals, the smart guys like himself. Of course, the smart guys to do it. Not now. He distrusted intellectuals. He believed peasants were the solution to everything. And the one thing he wants to avoid is an urban elitist population. He definitely wants to avoid this city, urban, elite group. He trusts the peasants and trusts the farmers. That's where he comes from. That's his background. That's who he's always appealed to for support. All right, we'll stop here and pick up with the Great Leap Forward in the next lecture.